Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Mark, aka the FPL General, to reveal his team for Game Week 12. Today we'll consider quite a major change in the FPL community recently with Bluesky perhaps taking over from X as one of, if not the main place for the FPL community on social media. We'll also look at the best captains right up until January the 4th. We'll also consider the best goalkeepers for those who really have had enough of Flecken especially. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, Joe. Yeah, we're finally into the second week of the international break and thankfully the last one until March time. So it's the calm before the storm. It's going to be a very busy period of hopefully green arrows between now and Christmas time. So yeah, looking forward to getting back into it this weekend.
Definitely. Just a reminder, do press that like button, does help us out. Do leave a 4-star review or 5-star review. I don't know how many stars it goes up to on podcast, but anyway, yeah, a big review that says we're great on wherever you receive our podcasts as well. And do remember to subscribe so you're up to date with all our latest videos and podcasts. So I'm going to put the fixtures up now, just very briefly, because we showed them in our last video, and then I'll move on to the Captaincy Matrix. So I'll just use this as a sort of introduction, really, just for the next 5 fixtures or so. And this shows that Ipswich, Wolves, Brighton, Aston Villa, Arsenal, Bournemouth and Chelsea have among the best fixtures. Southampton, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, Manchester United and Everton have some of the worst, although Manchester United's fixtures are pretty good, the next two, Ipswich and Everton. Meanwhile, sort of for captaincy, Palmer looks good pretty much for all of these next few fixtures. SALAH looks good for pretty much all of these fixtures, perhaps not at home to Manchester City, but, Manchester City are conceding. Arsenal, Saka looks good for many of these fixtures, all of them, I would say. Bruno Fernandes, next two, looks really good. And then you've got players like Isak as well, who could be good for the captaincy. So let's have a look at the Captaincy Matrix. I'll put this up here. I'll put it up on screen, and don't worry, those listening to the podcast version, we'll discuss it, really. So I'm going to do it. I've done this right up until Game Week 20. So we'll do the game week at hand. Game Week 12, I think the top choice is SALAH away to Southampton. But Saka, Haaland, Saka at home to Nottingham Forest if he's fit. Haaland at home to Tottenham. Palmer away to Leicester. Bruno Fernandes away to Ipswich. It's a lot of choice here. So yeah, I mean, who are you thinking of captaining this week? And do you agree with my assessment that Salah's perhaps the best?
Yeah, I do. If I was putting this together, I would have Salah top choice as well away to Southampton. He's currently got my armband. I think I did have it on Cole Palmer in the last video, but it's switched over now to Salah. Nice quiet international break for him. Yeah, just on fire at the moment. I've got more faith and more confidence in the Liverpool attack at the moment than I do Chelsea overall as well. So I do think it's a close call between those two. And again, the others on the list here, there's plenty of alternatives if you're still a Haaland owner by the time we get to the weekend. A Tottenham team that don't keep very many clean sheets. Haaland has the underlying numbers. He's scoring plenty of goals for Norway. He's an absolutely fine captaincy candidate in any given game week. So plenty of options. And I just got the highlights before we start recording of the last Manchester United fixture as well. And Bruno looked great. So it's, loads of choice out there, but I'm pretty sure I'll be on Salah this week.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to Game Week 13, I think Palmer at home to Aston Villa is very strong. Brian Mbeumo, possibly. I need to monitor, perhaps something we might look at next week, Brian Mbeumo's role within the Brentford setup. Is he the best captaincy option? But home to Leicester, got Saka away to West Ham, looks good. And Bruno Fernandes' good little mini good run of fixtures continues at home to Everton. What are your immediate thoughts for Game Week 13? Because you've got to really think about Game Week 13 now with your next moves.
Yeah, it's probably Cole Palmer. I think that's kind of what I've earmarked. Kind of flip-flop between Salah and Palmer for the next couple of game weeks as a non-Haaland owner. I do really like Mbeumo in home fixtures. As we've seen so far this season, he's been really, really productive and doesn't get much better than Leicester at home. As we've just seen, Manchester United, easily scored a couple of goals and could have had more against that Leicester defence. So it's always hard, though, to put an armband on a player from a Brentford than, versus someone like a Chelsea or a Liverpool. So yeah, probably Palmer, Game Week 13. Villa on paper is never an easy fixture, but I don't think they're as resolute this season as they have been previously, and trying to juggle a lot of games, of course, and a few injuries as well. So yeah, probably Palmer 13.
Yep, captain Salah against Villa at home. That obviously did well, and not a problem there. Palmer, he's on a par with Salah now for getting hauls, particularly at home. Game week 14, I think Palmer's there again. So this shows so far, Salah, Palmer are the ones to have. Game week 14, Palmer's away to Southampton. Like that a lot. Haaland's at home to Nottingham Forest, but Nottingham Forest defence, I mean, the way they played against Liverpool, I don't like that. So I'm confident being Haalandless. I mean, I say that, famous last words after a third hat-trick, but game week 14. Oh yeah, I should also say game week 13 that Haaland and Salah play each other. So hard to tell. But game week 14, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, again, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes if I owned Haaland and Cole Palmer. It always comes down to the fixture for me. And yes, it might be an away game for Palmer, but Nottingham Forest are just, as we know, they're up there. They're very capable of defending well and not conceding too many goals. It might depend on if Kevin De Bruyne is back in action. That makes Haaland more attractive to me if you own him for the armband. And I know a lot of people do lean on home fixture more so. So I think it's very close that week between the Norwegian and Palmer. Okay. But again, it's Operation Target Southampton, I think, with my armband for the next few weeks.
Yeah. Game week 15, Salah's away to Everton. Obviously, derby game, but also it's Everton and it's Salah. So I like that. I think he's the top choice there. Haaland away to Crystal Palace. I don't know what shape Crystal Palace will be in there. That could be good. But I think they're probably on a par with each other, maybe. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts sort of game week 15? Because of course, Palmer is away to Tottenham, which could be good, and Arsenal, Saka's away to Fulham. I don't like that for the captaincy so much so.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that this table was put together and has been talked about by non-Haaland owners because he doesn't appear in the left-hand column until game week 20. So for the purpose of that, I'm going to say game week 15 on current information, and I know Crystal Palace improved a little bit recently, but if we get to game week 15 and Palace are still struggling, I think I like that more for a captaincy over Salah if you've got both players.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I won't. I'll just have Salah. But yeah, so that's definitely up for debate. Haaland owners will probably think that Haaland should be the top choice there. Game week 16, Haaland and Salah and Palmer all look good. I think Palmer away to Brentford, at home to Brentford, we both Flecken veterans, and he's just going to score. So Salah's at home to Fulham. I quite like that because it's a home game. Fulham and Haaland at home to Manchester United. I'm sort of tentative about that because I don't know what Manchester United are going to look like by then. But I do like Haaland has a personal thing about Manchester United scoring against them. So I kind of like that. And I've done that before in the past with Haaland.
Yeah, it's... traditionally in the last couple of years, United captain and against Manchester United has been quite productive. Salah definitely comes to mind, but Haaland can absolutely do that as well. But again, a Brentford team that are really shipping a lot of goals this season. Like you said, they've got our goalkeeper, so it's another plus. Hopefully he will no longer be in my team by that point, which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, Palmer against Brentford again. Salah at home to Fulham, very attractive also. Not on the table, but I think Saka's home to Everton that week, which is worth a shout as well.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that really, and I should have put him on the list really. Isak at home to Leicester is another strong contender. So lots of good options. That week.
I think if we get to game week 16 and Isak and Newcastle are on the up as they are at the moment, then that'll be very popular, I think.
Yeah. Haaland's away to Aston Villa. If Haaland was home to Aston Villa, I think he would be in the equation for game week 17. But as it goes, Salah against that Tottenham backline, I think is a very strong option for the captaincy because it's Salah, because it's Tottenham can see game week 17. Lots of strong options though. Bruno Fernandes at home to Bournemouth possibly. Palmer away to Everton. Saka away to Crystal Palace. I think there's a lot of strong options this week really. But once again, it shows how important Salah's been, I think, to the captaincy. And I'm not even biased here. I just think he's got the fixtures and he's Mo Salah.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the main reasons we've made the switch to him. We looked ahead at these fixtures and we
Yeah.
thought we will captain him very often.
Mm.
He's very often the top two, if not the number one choice, given his current form and Liverpool performing very well also. So yeah, any captain against a Tottenham defence is always attractive. That's why, I do like Erling Haaland, give me 12 as well if you still have him, because you're hoping for at least one, if not more.
Yeah.
Bentancur, I think, 7-game ban now as well, so that weakens them a little bit, shielding the back four. So yeah, Salah against
Yeah.
Tottenham,
Okay.
unless I own Bruno Fernandes by then, which who knows? It's down the line a wee bit.
Now, game week 18, I've spotted my first error in here. It says Saka and Bruno Fernandes both play Ipswich. That is, of course, not true. It is Bruno Fernandes, in fact, is away to Wolves. Okay, so before you leave a comment in this, because I always get this when I get one of these muddled up. People say, "Oh no, but Bruno Fernandes isn't playing Ipswich." I know that. I'm addressing that now, so there's no need to leave a comment. Please do not. Saka is in fact home to Ipswich. And so that's a very strong fixture. Bruno Fernandes, still a very strong fixture away to Wolves. Haaland at home to Everton is good. Palmer at home to Fulham is pretty good. I like Salah at home to Leicester. I think Salah home, promoted side. You've got to have a pretty special fixture to top that, I think.
Yeah, I think so far this season, any strong premium at home to a promoted team, you don't really overthink it. So if Salah continues and he's injury free and there's no rotation risk, then I think that will be an easy choice that week.
Yeah, definitely. So game week 19. So we're getting to the last game in the year. Palmer away to Ipswich, I like a lot because he's not in Europe, so he should be nailed on if he's fit. And it's targeting a promoter side. I know it's away though, but there are some other lots of good away games for some key assets. Saka away to Brentford with Flecken there. Haaland away to Leicester, that's strong as well, but it's away. And Salah away to West Ham as well. I think there's a lot of strong fixtures here, but a lot of away. I didn't see any sort of home sides I particularly like. Bruno Fernandes at home to Newcastle, still don't like that as much. Yeah, this is Christmas. There's a lot of choice for captains, I think.
Yeah, and first instinct, game week 19 is I think that's an Erling Haaland week. And I've kind of, when I sold him 2 weeks ago, in my head it was going to be around game week 18 would be the entry point back in, because at that point he plays Everton home, Leicester away, and West Ham home, and that's when we really start to strongly see his name again in this captaincy matrix. So I need to keep that in mind. And I think anyone who doesn't have him does need to keep that 18, 19, 20 run in mind, because we might want them for the captaincy. So I'm going to say game week 19 against Leicester away is a Haaland week.
Yeah, I think arguably you could put Haaland away to Leicester as even better than Palmer away to Ipswich. That's just my bias there. Even with my bias, I do think that Haaland is the best captain in game week 20. This is the first game of January the 4th. And there is a break because there's the FA Cup games. And so there's a Premier League break. So the next game week 21 is January the 14th. So I've done it right up until that break. It's quite a nice place to break there as well for when you're planning. But Haaland at home to West Ham. West Ham, I don't know what shape they'll be in then, but I think on paper, Haaland at home against a team that's quite poor defensively at the moment. Saka away to Brighton, his streak is strong. Salah at home to Manchester United, I like as well. I like these sort of derby games, big players. Bruno Fernandes is also strong in these types of fixtures. Palmer away to Crystal Palace. Lots of choice there. But as you were saying, game week 18, 19, you're thinking about Haaland. Game week 20, I would feel a little... I'd possibly nervous for the first time not owning Haaland.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if I don't own him at the latest game week 20, and a lot would need to change between now and then for him not to get the armband when you look at those other fixtures. I mean, Salah against Manchester United has a very good record, but new manager, hopefully a more resolute Manchester United team. Palmer against Palace, just depends what shape Palace are in at that point. We probably haven't given Saka enough love in this table, but I think there often is a better candidate. Which begs the question, is Saka required, or can you spread his funds around to get players like Isak, etc.? So, but yeah, give me 20, Erling Haaland captain, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'll discuss on my video. I think we're going to be talking about on my team reveal video later in the week, and also Tom Freeman's as well, is about some of these premiums, and do we need Saka, for example. So for example, this week, one of the decisions I have is, do I plan for getting Saka in game week 13, or even for a hit now, or do I go for Bruno Fernandes, and will Bruno Fernandes offer me what Saka offers, but for $1 million less, or a couple of million less? So that's an issue there. Just looking briefly at the fixtures coming up, and this really underlines why Haaland could be really important from 18, 19, 20-ish, because that continues. Game week 21, because you're really looking at Salah versus Haaland captaincy. So game week 21, Salah's away to Nottingham Forest. I don't like that as much for the captaincy. But then you look at Man City, they're away to Brentford. Much better. Game week 22, and it goes on. Liverpool are away to Brentford, so I do quite like that for Salah. But Man City away to Ipswich, I think I prefer that one. And game week 23, just finally, I can't do all of the fixtures, but game week 23, what are we looking at here? Man City at home to Chelsea, so it's a home game. Liverpool at home to Ipswich, so it's round about then. I'm thinking, I think Salah. So game week 22-ish, 23, I would prefer Salah over Haaland. But this little Christmas run, Haaland for Christmas. Maybe that should be a title of someone's YouTube video if we still do those types of titles.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said that earlier, very much. I keep reminding myself, game week 18, have a route to Haaland. Have money available, have transfers available. So that's a constant reminder for the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Now we're also going to talk about goalkeepers. Both myself and you, we've got Flecken. And we prefer other ones, and we've sort of neglected it because we thought, well, I'll make that move at some point. So I hadn't really caught up on the latest stats for the goalkeepers. So I've made a table, and it's from all matches, and I've only done those obviously that are regular starters, and they've got to have at least a save every 30 minutes. So I want them to get save points for me. They need to have at least a clean sheet. So Flecken dropped off this list because no clean sheet. In fact, I did it so they got 2 clean sheets. Even if you've got 1 clean sheet, I'm not interested. So you've got to have at least 2 clean sheets and a save every 30 minutes. I've also sorted it by XG prevented. If it's in the plus, that means they've actively prevented that number of goals. If it's in the minus, that means they've actively not prevented. They've actually cost their team goals as well. Top is Pope. Newcastle's fixtures are really good. He costs 5 million. They've conceded 11 goals, but he's got 3 clean sheets, same as Raya. Minutes per save every 23.6 minutes. That's strong, so you're going to get save points there. His XG prevented. He himself has actively prevented getting on for 3 goals. Saves caught. He hasn't caught any saves, but what he's done is I've included these. I've gone into detail here. He's punched away 11, so he's got a really strong punch. But he has half of his saves have actually been parried to an opposition player. That's 6 there. That's quite normal for these goalkeepers, though. Okay, and that's not too bad. These are quite strong. So a really bad keeper is going to be parrying a hell of a lot more shots than these to opposition. So just sort of parrying a shot to an opposition once every 2 games. That's not bad. So yeah, Pope, that surprised you. Pope's, I think, is actually probably the best one to go for if money's not an object at the moment.
Yeah, it's like you, I've kind of neglected the goalkeepers as well. I knew just kick it down the road, and you end up with 2 pointers every week. But it's getting to the point now where very, very soon I will be making a goalkeeper transfer, because I'm not going to just sit with Flecken until the second wild card and regret it like I usually do with goalkeepers. So refreshing to see a few names here that I haven't really been considering. My go-to, I've been saying it for about 2 months. I'm just going to get David Raya when Arsenal's fixtures improve. But then you think, do I really want to spend 5.6? Do I want one of my Arsenal spots to be tied up with a goalkeeper, or could I get a Timber or a Saliba instead? Odegaard's back. Havertz is always an option. So I want to keep a very open mind on which goalkeeper to go for. And I kind of like the idea as well of maybe going slightly differential with a goalkeeper, because it is hard to be different in this game, even this season. And I don't think I've seen any teams with Nick Pope. Very, very few. Fixtures are good. Yeah. Good numbers here as well. And they do seem to be turning the corner a little bit as well just before the international break in terms of performances and results. So yeah, at 5 million, I think Pope is up there. as one of the best options.
Yeah, I mean, I might go for Lewis Hall, but if I didn't go for Lewis Hall, he's obviously cheaper. I think Pope is a strong option. Another option here is Henderson. The problem is with Crystal Palace themselves. They have got a couple of clean sheets, though, but he's conceded 15 goals. Minutes per save every 24 minutes, which is pretty strong, just below Pope there. And he's actively prevented a couple of goals there. He's actually caught three. He's actually saved by catching a ball, so he hasn't had to punch them away or parry them away. Basically, if he's caught them, then if your save is being parried to an opposition player, there's a chance they may score. If your save's being caught, there's no chance they can score unless they actively kick the ball out of the goalkeeper's hands, which of course they can't do. Henderson's a one to monitor perhaps because of Crystal Palace.
Yeah, Henderson was in my Game Week 1 team. I'm not sure how many Game Weeks he survived, but it wasn't too many. I suppose the first wild card he would have got shipped out around Game Week 6. So we've had kind of Henderson for half of the game weeks and Flecken for the other half, and disaster all around. So I need something more secure between the sticks for this upcoming period. And I'm just looking at the fixture ticker. I've even looked a bit further, next 8 game weeks in terms of difficulty, and just comparing Pope and Henderson. Newcastle are a lot higher on the ticker. And I think I've got more faith in them to keep clean sheets as well. So it might be worth, I think, paying the extra for Nick Pope. And again, because I don't have Haaland at the moment, funds are not a huge issue.
Okay. Is Verbruggen here? So I went for the IKEA Flecken and Verbruggen combination on my wildcard. I'm pleased I did. This week, even though he's away to Bournemouth, it's the first week I'm going to play Verbruggen over Flecken. I've been sitting there week in, week out, Verbruggen outscoring Flecken. Some weeks by multiple points. He's got a double-digit haul one week sitting on my bench. I've had enough of that now. Flecken back on the bench for Verbruggen in 4.5. Brighton's run is great. Bournemouth away, Southampton at home, Fulham away, Leicester and Crystal Palace all up until game week 16. I'm very pleased about his confirmation bias for me. His XG prevented is strong, prevented a couple of goals. He himself, minutes per save, strong, every 23.8 minutes, which is better than Henderson. He's got a couple of clean sheets, and he's caught he's saved by catching the ball, which is more than Henderson. Parry to opposition is just 5 times, which is less than Pope, fewer than Pope and Henderson. He's punched the ball away to save 3 times. Pope did that 11 times. This is just confirmation bias for me.
Yeah, the fixtures are definitely there. My own gut instinct is, it feels like if I want to keep my run of buying new goalkeepers that have good fixtures that don't get me many points, that Verbruggen's probably the most likely. Go from Henderson to Flecken to Verbruggen and get an average of 2.5 points over the first half of the season. So that's why when I've got that gut feeling that I think I'm going to end up spending more than 4.5, and I'm probably going to look at a bit more, 5 million or 5 million plus. Just when I've got the cash, treat myself, and hopefully the investment will actually result in some points. But Verbruggen, I think totally fine, because a 4-5 goalkeeper, you don't need much from them. You do need the odd clean sheet, which Flecken hasn't been getting. But I think Brighton and Verbruggen are good enough to get those when the fixtures are as they are. So definitely an option in that bracket.
Yeah. So what I've noticed by looking at his points on my bench every week is even when they concede, he gets more save points than Flecken. So that's good. Another good option is Sanchez. Well, I say a good option. He's actually a terrible option because he was replaced by Jason Steele in the Brighton team. But Sanchez is 4.7. He's actually more than Verbruggen. He's conceded 13 goals. He's got 2 clean sheets, same as Verbruggen. Minutes per save, pretty similar, 23.6. XG prevented, though, is 0.8. So he's only actively prevented a goal. He's caught a couple of balls there, and he's fairly sort of average for these players here. I like Sanchez. Chelsea have really great fixtures: Leicester, Aston Villa, Southampton, Tottenham, Brentford. But I don't know if they're clean sheet fixtures, a lot of them. I think Chelsea will win them, but I think they might concede. I don't know what your feelings are, about Sanchez.
My feelings are more about the player than the team. I like what Chelsea are doing this season, and I'm looking at the fixtures. I want more than just Cole Palmer, but every time I look at them, I've kind of got reasons to hesitate. And I think Sanchez, for me, when I pick an FPL goalkeeper, one of the things I try and do, and I think I've failed on this season so far, is do I rate this goalkeeper in reality, in the top 10, top 12 goalkeepers in the league. I don't put Flecken in that category. I probably don't put Henderson in that category either. So why did I own both players so far? And I don't put Sanchez there either. So that's why I like Nick Pope's better. I like David Raya's better. At least if it doesn't work out, I can tell myself, at least I bought a good goalkeeper. It just, didn't work out FPL wise. So Sanchez, again, catching up on the highlights just before we start recording, beating at his near post, pretty poorly in the last fixture. Always has a few dodgy moments if you own him, which doesn't make FPL any easier. And there's so many goalkeepers on the books at Chelsea. We've got Jorgensen playing all the European games. Who knows? Can he get past Sanchez at some point? It's very possible. I don't have a sub goalkeeper, so whoever I buy needs to have zero chance of losing their place, which is why I like the likes of Pope and David Raya.
Yep. Well, Leno could be in the mix as well. I personally wouldn't put him above either of those two goalkeepers you just mentioned there. But he's 5 million, that's why. And on the strength of last season, but this season's been pretty good as well. Couple of clean sheets, minutes per save every 28 minutes, so pretty strong, but not as good as any of the keepers we mentioned. Is XG prevented though? Is minus 1.2, so hasn't been as strong as some of the others there. And he's caught a couple of balls to make saves as well. I guess you'd probably put him below the likes of Pope and many of these other names.
Yeah, I just feel like even if Leno was 4.5 or 4.6, I still wouldn't be overly keen. So that tells me I'm not going to pay 5. Fixtures, next 5, there's Tottenham, Arsenal, and Liverpool, so it's not the right time to go there.
No, Raya, this is the player that you've got your eye on, so it's good to compare him with others. Cost, he doesn't perform favourably, 5.6. Goals conceded, 12. Well, that's one more than Pope. Clean sheets, 3. Same as Pope. Minutes per save, 28.3. That's worse than Pope. XG prevented, minus 1.7. That's worse out of any of these players here. He has caught 4 balls though, so proving that when he's making a save, he's making the goal secure. He's not parrying it to the opposition. He has done that 6 times, but he's saving a lot of times as well. Actually catching the ball, which is part of his job. You go into this thinking I'm going to get Raya, I want that security of it. But does this make you think, well, actually, I might better get that with someone like Pope?
Yeah, it does. It definitely makes me question it, and I've probably been having doubts about Raya anyway, because obviously there hasn't been any points there in recent times. But then you got to remind yourself the fixtures were tricky. And I do expect Arsenal to kick into gear again now with clean sheets. And I've got Gabriel, and I do like the idea of the double up. So I think at the time of recording, now I'm not going to make a goalkeeper transfer game week 12. It'll probably be game week 13 or 14. I'm still just about leaning towards Raya. But this has definitely given me a lot of food for thought. I think Pope in particular. But again, you mentioned him earlier. When Lewis Hall is only 4.3.
Oh, 4.4
it's
now.
much easier. Even still, it's much easier to go there when we don't have defenders performing very well. So I think I'd be more likely to go Raya and Hall, for example, rather than Pope and maybe a Timber, go cheaper. So yeah, plenty of options here, but I think Pope's the one that's really, you've definitely planted a seed for me here today.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to do this table. It's good to catch up on the goalkeepers, because it's not a position you want to change around too much. But sometimes, if you've got Flecken, you got to at some point. So it's good to catch up on who the latest good keepers will be. Let's just catch up just before we go with your team for next week. I haven't changed this since our last video here, but just to remind people, or perhaps for those that hadn't seen last week's video, do you want to run through your team, who you're going to captain, what moves you might make?
You should have opened Microsoft Paint and added in a few more yellow flags, because there's quite a few more since. So yeah, no transfers made. Flecken in goal against Everton away, which he'll probably stay for. Trent, Gabriel, Enrico Lewis. Midfield 5, Salah, Palmer, Saka, Mbumo, and Johnson, who's away to Manchester City. Up front, Chris Wood, who's after scoring 500 goals at the other side of the world. Cunha is away to Fulham. And my only usable sub at the moment is Mikalenko at home to Brentford. So we spoke on last week's video about Brennan Johnson to Semenyo being the initial plan and probably still the plan. I also price changes haven't affected me yet on the Xiaomi to João Pedro option, which is also attractive because it gives me the 8 strong attackers going into this busy festive period. So it's probably between those two moves, but of course I need a lot of yellow flags to clear up, which I think they will. International break-itis will quickly clear as we get closer to Friday and Saturday. So yeah, Semenyo for Johnson or João Pedro for Xiaomi is what I'm looking at.
Okay, and the captaincy you've got on Palmer away to Leicester, but you mentioned earlier that it was Salah away to Southampton you marginally preferred.
Yeah, last week's screenshot has Palmer captain, but that has now moved to Mohamed Salah.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to stay. I like the fixture more, and yeah, just a nice break for Salah as well.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing internationals. I mean, knows Palmer, but he hasn't. But Salah hasn't been playing because he's been rested. Palmer's because he's had an injury. He said, yeah, he's flagged at the moment. Yeah, there's everything sort of points towards Salah. Look at team news later in the week. It's going to be lots more content on Fantasy Football Scout, lots more videos, lots more podcasts, lots more posts on Blue Sky as well. So do check those out so you can keep up to date with all the latest team news developments. I mentioned about Blue Sky in the introduction. And so I joined early last week. It's been obviously knocking around for a while. It had about 9 million users, not in the FPL community, 9 million users full stop in September. As of today, it's got 19 million. So it's more than doubled in that time, particularly over the last week. Politics aside, I had enough of Twitter just because I wasn't getting any engagement with stuff. And I was thinking, I had to lock my account because there was too many horrible views on there. And it was just none of my followers were seeing anything and I wasn't seeing anything I wanted to see. So I joined Blue Sky and immediately I have seen the engagement proliferate and more people join, more people enjoying the experience of it. It's like Twitter of old, and it's exactly how I felt when I joined FPL Twitter when that became the main one. So you've joined as well. We both got little Blue Sky contact details on the page. So you've joined as well, Mark. How are you finding the change in the FPL community?
Yeah, it's certainly made it a more interesting international break than usual. Not as many people are switching off the 2 weeks because it has been a seismic shift really among FPL community going from Twitter or X, whatever it's called, to Blue Sky. It's been rapid, and it's probably, if it's ever going to happen, an international break's always a good time to do so because there's not much else to do, not much else to talk about. So yeah, it's I wasn't reluctant whatsoever to set one up once I seen a few people like yourself and a few others who I follow mentioning Blue Sky. Downloaded the app, logged in, followed a few people that I already follow on Twitter, and straight away, like many, you get that nostalgic feeling of you kind of forget what Twitter was like one time. It used to be a great place, and it's for many reasons, which would take about 10 hours to go into. It's not the FPL community on Twitter is not what it once was, and like I said, a lot of reasons, and probably people like myself as well have maybe a lot to answer for it kind of going down a path that maybe not a lot of people like. So it's a fresh start for everyone, and that's what it's. I keep saying to people, it feels fresh, it feels clean for now. Of course, it's an international break. There's no games, there's no moaning, and there's a lot of people probably not on Blue Sky yet who cause a lot of havoc on other platforms. But the early signs are great. I'm really enjoying it, and it's that simple thing. I have a lot of followers on Twitter. But I post some things on Twitter to 250,000 followers, and I could get 2 likes, which tells you all you need to know about algorithms and how hard it is to get things out there nowadays. And that's even with a blue tick, which I need to get rid of soon, of course. So yeah, it's really nice. It's very refreshing. I find clicking on the Blue Sky app now, I'll read through my timeline, I'll look at the replies, and I'll put the phone down again, and I'll feel the same way I did when I picked it up, if not better. Whereas usually when you come off X, you've got a negative feeling. You've seen loads of ads, or you go into your DMs and there's women in all parts of the world asking you for tips, and it's not FPL tips they want. So yeah, it's been very refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got to look at some people with their user account. So you've obviously got many dozens of thousands of followers on X, and I had about 40,000. But my account's still there. It's just inactive. So I've just put a tag on there saying it's inactive, and follow me on Blue Sky and Insta and whatever. But yeah, I mean, whatever. Even if you've got 500 followers on there, you just got to weigh it up. Is it good to have 10,000 bags of rotten apples, or is it good to have a couple of £1,000 or a couple of £100? And that's the thing. It's just it's totally immaterial. The number of followers you had on X and Blue Sky is just the quality. It's just so. I mean, there's a lot of international break silly conversations about favorite crisps and favorite albums and those types of things, which I love. Those kinds of things. It's good to see them, and I can see them and engage with them. And then there's a lot of serious FPL chat. And as you said, this weekend is going to be a test for Blue Sky, because there's going to be lots of Haaland goals and Salah, and oh my god, I've got a million points. How many have you got? Like I care. It's those kinds of posts, and we're going to get all of those, and that's going to create. There's going to be people seeing them when they're drunk or tired or emotional, and they're going to be posting negative things. So we're going to see, at the moment, it's like we've all walked into a church hall and we're all being very polite and talking to each other, but it's going to descend into something unpleasant, possibly for some people. But let's just see. I mean, it'd be a good test for people. Maybe we'll all just be a bit kinder and nicer to each other during.
Yeah,
that.
it's been like you say, we're all best friends over the last couple of days, but we can't all stay best friends forever. It's interesting because you move over to Blue Sky and you realize how many people you had muted or blocked. I was getting a couple of messages from people saying, "Oh, it's great to be able to see your post, Mark," and I'm just giving everyone the benefit of the doubt now that it's a fresh start. Nobody's blocked yet. Nobody's muted. I've even followed a few people that I haven't for a couple of years just to see if they're a better version of themselves on a new platform, which could easily be the case. So yeah, it's been great. Like I said, it'll be a bit of chaos, a bit of carnage, especially if there's a few big captaincy swings and stuff like that this weekend. But there's still mute functions, there's still block functions. So yeah, there's always tools at our disposal. And
when it comes down to it as well, the use of X has been, you're getting real time updates from the news from the Premier League teams who aren't on Blue Sky yet, I don't think. But for pieces like Fantasy Football Scout, so you're getting the news there. That's there. And also I noticed some of the in the knows that it can be their posts or having to follow their posts can be annoying because it's pre-deadline stuff and suddenly player you've got is out and that type of thing. But they're on that now, and that's probably going to be the main deadline use as well, sort of following them.
Yeah, I think my main thing to say to people is I know myself. I'm usually skeptical about setting up new things. I don't use Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok or anything like that. I just like to focus on one or two rather than have 10. But if you're into FPL and if you've ever used Twitter for FPL content, whether it's just picking up news or different bits and pieces, definitely just download the Blue Sky app and give it a go, because chances are I'll put my money on that you'll probably enjoy the experience, and it's been very, very refreshing. So yeah, it's been a fun couple of days on there.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I've been enjoying the positivity from people who are joining it, going, "Oh wow, this is how FPL community used to be on social media." So it's quite refreshing there.
And even just from my perspective as well, I think what you see a lot of people saying, I suppose the big test, if Blue Sky is going to become the number one place for FPL engagement, are all the big accounts going to come over? And most of them seem to have at least set up an account. And people think we make an absolute fortune from having loads of followers on Twitter, but the reality is we really don't. I think they introduced you got a certain payment every couple of months because of, depending on how many blue ticked, posts replied under your comments and stuff like that. I was getting maybe £10-11 a month, and it seems to have just disappeared over the last 6 months. So it's I've got a big following on Twitter, but I would happily leave it behind if everybody who I want to be there moves to Blue Sky and everyone has a fresh start. Because like I said, having a big account is obviously great for lots of reasons, but I always miss the engagement. When you get 50, 60 replies on a tweet, you can't reply to everyone. You can't even like everyone's post. No. So I've enjoyed just talking to people just by a simple reply that I wouldn't have been able to do so maybe on Twitter last week or week before. So yeah, it's my following's kind of grown organically anyway, but I'd be quite happy if it stayed at a much smaller number this time.
Yeah, definitely. It's quality and I think quantity as well. I think more moving over. Certainly seen that in a range of sectors as well. Whatever you're into as well. I've got a friend who's an archaeologist. He's an academic in that field. And they've all moved over because they were posting scientific things on Twitter. And imagine the responses they're getting there. How dare you post that woke scientific theory? And they're just trying to share research and just that type of thing as well. But anyway, Mark, thanks so much for joining me. We'll meet again next week. Good luck with the game week and good luck with your decisions.
Cheers all.